Welcome to Josh is Making Music. I'm Josh, and today I wanted to talk about a piece of gear that's new to me that I have just picked up. Like, this is my first day with it. Now, I'm a big fan of the groovebox format of music gear, which, at least when I'm using the term, what I mean is just a single piece of gear that you could produce an entire track on. That would be something like this Yamaha QY70. Inside of here, it has a sequencer. It can then record. It has tons of different audio samples, and you can put together a whole song without ever needing to go to another piece of gear. I would say some really popular examples of a groovebox would be something like Novation circuits, both the rhythm and the circuit tracks, or something like Electron's model cycles, model samples, those kinds of devices that is just a single box, you can put together a song. Now, if you're really into grooveboxes, or if you've watched a lot of music YouTubers like Red Means Recording, Cuckoo, Andrew Huang, all of whom are really amazing, and they're much bigger than me, so I don't know if they'll benefit from the shout out, but you should go subscribe to them. If you've watched them, you've probably seen the device that I'm going to be featuring today, which is the OP-1 by Teenage Engineering. This is the same company that makes the pocket operators, which I've spoken about in other videos, but I love their cheap little, I guess I would say cheap little groove boxes. The OP-1 is a much more premium product. Even used, which is how I got mine, you're probably looking at about $1,000 for it. I'm not going to be telling you whether or not it's worth it in this video. This really is my first day with it. I got it, I don't know, 4 hours ago. So we'll take a look at it. We'll see what it's like. And yeah, I'm excited. So let's jump right in. So here we are with the top-down view of the OP-1. Now, I know this might sound weird to say, but I feel like I might need more than a day to have a nice first impressions video. But something that did strike me when I took it out of the box is it's a lot heavier than you would think given its size. And the build quality in general feels really good. All of these buttons, nice and clicky, feel really good. The encoders, they're okay. I'm not really impressed by that. But, excuse me, Kapaka, we're going to turn it on and see what it's got to show us. Now, there is some stuff on the tape in here. I wanted to make sure everything worked right, so I was testing it out a little bit, just recording a couple things. So what I've got on here sounds like this. I realized I did not have the audio up on my audio interface. What's recorded on here sounds like this. So yeah, that was fun to make, and now we're going to mercilessly delete it. If I remember right, it's a shift, and then there's this little button that you use. So if I was on the synthesizer screen that I would use to get to this tape screen, I would hit shift and then the tape button, and it'll say erase tape. They really want you to commit. You have to press all 4 keys. And it's just gonna go through destroying anything that I might have created before. So here we are on a blank tape. Now if I hit play, you don't hear anything. It's a very exciting, very quiet composition. I think that we maybe could start just playing around with sounds and seeing where we get. So there's these 3 buttons over here that you can use to jump between, I guess the 3 major kind of screens. That is the tape, where we are right now, a synthesizer, drums, and, well, there's no 4th thing. So I think that we'll start. Why don't we start with the synthesizer engines? Now, when you have the synthesizer engines, you can see as I go through here, I've got a few different pages. I've got the actual engine, which if this interface looks weird and doesn't quite make sense, it's because, as far as I know, the OP-1 is actually sort of notorious for doing sound creation in its own way. But I guess that's also part of the charm. If I go to 2, I have something that might be a lot more familiar, which is an envelope. So if I've got this sound, I could turn the attack up or down, I guess I would say. So now instead of just coming in right away, it'll go and fade in. That's something nice to use if you're doing like a nice pad. Drag out the release as well. And these keys down here, even though they might look a little funky, are actually going to be arranged like a piano keyboard, going from F up to a higher F. And then you can jump between the octaves using these arrows here. If I go to screen 3, this is our effects. While I'm on it right now, it says off, but if I tap 3 again, it'll turn it on. The effect that's on here right now is essentially a filter. The effects on the OP-1 all have their own kind of funky UI. So like the one that we were on there is called Nitro, and this is sort of like a filter. I can turn it into a high pass filter, low pass, and if I use the two together, it would be a bandpass filter. Let's go back to screen 1, which is our synthesizer engines. So I'll be honest, I took a look at them. I played around with them. I am certainly not an expert, but we can take a look and see how they work, and you might get to hear some very fun sounds of me being confused. And I guess we'll start with this one, cluster. So let's see. I notice that as I play, there's lines here. Maybe I'll start turning things. Ooh. I'm going to tighten up that envelope. I like that. And maybe... All right. You know what? Why don't we try making a little beat with it? If I tap on these, you see it'll bring up a different synthesizer engine. I can have 8 engines, well, 8, I guess you could say, synth patches loaded across these 8 buttons. And then you can also use those for drums, which we'll talk about later. But hey, I don't know. We're just kind of freestyling things here, just hanging out. Why don't we try making a simple little groove? I am going to use the sequencer. So the OP-1 has a number of sequencers. If I hit Shift and the sequencer button, you'll bring up a list. There's arpeggio, endless, finger, pattern, sketch, tombola. The one that I'm going to use is endless. I like that it is very easy to understand. So that pattern that I was playing earlier, that I was going like, I think I really enjoyed. It wasn't quite like that, but that's okay. I think we could work with something like that, going from a B flat to an F. So the way that this one works is that I will record a sequence of notes. I'm going to press Shift, and I will start playing. So I wanted to do, I think it was, oh, I already forgot. But you know what? That's okay. I let go. I hit Shift again. And I let go. Now, anytime I hit a key, it's going to play back that sequence and then transpose it depending on the key I hit. So if I hit this C, it'll play it back in the key that I recorded. If I hit the B flat, it'll play it back 1 octave down. Anyway, why don't we now talk about how we could record with this? So something that I did when I recorded that little test that I had on the tape that we erased at the beginning was I used the Nitro effect to do a filter sweep to lead in. So it would sound something like this. So I'm like, hey, why don't we record that onto the tape? I'm going to hit that tape button, and here we are on the tape. Now, I'm going to record, and to make sure that what I record stays like, I start right when the sequence starts, I'm going to do this trick, which I think I learned from watching a Red Means recording video. This button here is record. I'm going to press record and hold it, and then I'm going to hit the key for the sequence, and it'll start. And now, if I go to this screen, and I guess if I really wanted to, I could have kept recording that for, several more minutes. But what I can do now, if I want, is just copy and paste things so that they'll fit. I just trimmed off that last little bit, and I'm gonna lift it to remove it. And now, if I go all the way back, so when you wanna jump around in this tape view, if you hit Shift, you can maybe see these little tick marks here every 4 beats according to the tempo that's set in here. I can hit Shift and press an arrow to jump to the next 4-beat segment. Or if I was all the way at one end, I could either I could hit stop and it'll jump back, or I could hit stop and this arrow to the right to go to the end, or stop and the arrow to the left to go to the beginning. But anyway, let's play it back. And we will hear the exact same thing that we heard just a few moments ago. And yeah, so that's what we've just done. I think it might be fun now to do maybe some drums, but before we do, I'm going to cut the tape there and then lift that part. So it's like I've just copied it. Well, more like I've cut it. And now I'm going to, the reason I said was that I realized I had said cut the tape, meaning I split the 2 recordings, but then I used cut like on a Word document. Anyway, I'll hit this little button to drop in, and I can just, I could keep going for the entire length of the tape if I wanted to. I'm not crazy, I don't think I will. But we've now recorded onto tape that little arpeggio groove with a filter sweep. Gosh, I really hope it's not annoying just watching this totally directionless playing around with the OP-1 video. I think this would be a good time to transition to talking about drums. So you might have noticed over here that to go to the synthesizers, I hit this little like squiggly button. I'm gonna hit this button that I think is supposed to be a drum head getting hit with like a drumstick or a mallet. And that's gonna bring me to the drums. Now, like before, if I hit these buttons, I get this envelope, which, I'm sure I'll find a use for it sometime. I have effects. Right now I have just a little bit of reverb on it. It sounds like this. I like having that little extra bit of sonic context. I know some people don't really like putting reverb on their drums, but it's just a matter of personal taste. And then if I go through, when I hit these different buttons, I'll load up different drum kits. And something that is very cool to me about the OP-1 is because the way you record in your music is by like actually physically playing it, unless you're doing like the copying and pasting thing I mentioned earlier, it feels a lot more, at least in the little groove that I made before this video and the one that I'm making now, it feels really like performative, like they're trying to capture the feeling of recording onto a 4-track cassette recorder, which is something that I love doing. there definitely are niceties afforded to you by the fact that it is not actually a 4-track cassette recorder, but in fact exists within a small computer in a box made out of what I assume is fancy space metal. But I do think that it's cool having that kind of interface. It does come with limitations, though, which I'm sure we will get to in a bit. But anyway, now that we're on this drum, why don't we go back to the tape and just play around with it a little bit. I'll just hit play. Nothing's recording right now. And maybe we'll just try doing a little. All right, that was fun. I think that what might be cool now is to record those drums in. Now there are sequencers, and I'm going to record the drums on track 2. That synth arpeggio is on track 1. Now we're on track 2. There are sequencers for the drums, but off the top of my head, I don't know how to use any of them, and I figure that it might be... no. Now there are sequencers for the drums, but off the top of my head, I don't know for sure how to use any of them. And so the excuse I'm going to make is that I want to play it in so it has a little bit of a looser and more organic feel. Yes, that sounds right. Anyway, like we did before, I could hit record and then have it, go until I want to come in. Or what I could do instead is skip ahead to the point where I want the drums to start. And then like we did before, hit record, and then once I hit my first note, it will start recording. So if I started here, that little tick mark right there, that's where I want to start. And I'll just do a simple thing like that. And now that I've recorded that, like we did before, if I want to, I can then go over to where that is, and I can trim off that last little bit, and I'm just gonna get rid of it. And now I can lift and then drop it down, and there we go. I've got a drum part added. So now why don't we listen to what we've got here. I noticed something weird about track 1. I think that I may have made what we in the biz call a mistake. The important thing to remember about mistakes is that everyone makes them. I think that the mistake I had made was that the portion that I cut up was not quite the right size, and as a result, I had a little bit of a confusion in my phrasing length, or phrase length, I guess I would say. But no longer. I have learned the error of my ways, and I know now what it is I need to do. I guess that as long as we're making a track, we might as well look at some of the other... That was embarrassing. I guess that as long as we're making a track, we might as well look at some of the other synthesizer engines and see what other sounds we could add. Hey, why don't we check out this one that says Foom? Of course. Foom. But if I hit Shift and the number, I can bring up the engines and presets. Presets are here to save the day. Why don't we get a nice chunky bass sound? That's a little too chunky. I'm reminded of a very interesting story that will definitely fill up the time it will take for me to find a bass patch. And I will not need to skip ahead. All right, anyway, we skipped ahead. So here I am. I've got this patch that's being made using a synthesizer engine called Synth, and I've got some effects on here. I'm actually going to turn the LFO all the way down So we've got just this nice, like I said, chunky bass sound. I've got the filter on it now. So with the filter turned all the way up, you've got that, and I just brought out some of the high end. And that's what I'm going to play. And I'll have it start right there. Like we did before, I'm sure you're getting used to this trick by now. I'm going to have it start on C. And just to make sure I get everything nice and precise, I'm going to go into the metronome and turn it up. So now if I hit play, you can hear the metronome is going. Not a huge fan of metronome sounds in general, so we'll try to be done with it as soon as we can. Now, we'll start here, and like we did before, I hold record. And that was all I needed to do. Really, just that like short 2-measure phrase. And now we'll do a couple steps that I'm sure you're, at this point, getting very used to seeing me do, which is I'm going to cut and lift and then place or drop. Whatever the verb is that Teenage Engineering wants me to use, that's what I'm going to be doing with my bass part until I've got it to about that length. And now, as we play, we'll have first the filter will open up, then we have the drums come in, and if I want, I can go into here. I've got a mixer. I can bring those arpeggios down. All right, cool. You know, I didn't really plan on this turning into a making a track on the OP-1 day one, but I'm excited and happy that it did. And I feel like what this track really needs right now is just a really dumb sample, totally out of left field. I'm going to grab my computer. All right, so the sample that I'm going to use, I've got my computer hooked up to the microphone line in over here, is Dracula being philosophical in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. If you've played it, I'm sure you'll recognize this particular sample. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to record it onto the OP-1. I'm going to hold down a key, and it's in standby, and once I start playing...
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
All right, and now if I hit these keys...
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
I think I'll put the reverb on it. Because reverb, I feel like I understand. I'm just going to make it a very gentle reverb. So now, finally, we can hear the single greatest piece of music I will have ever made, and it is going to be this. Okay, we've got that recorded on. Forgive me if my head is entering the frame. I'm leaning forward a little bit to make sure I can see what's going on the screen. Now, in this video that has become making a goofy track on the OP-1, we will listen to what I have made. And before we do, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you don't mind how rambly and kind of unguided this video was. I was just so excited about getting this, and I really wanted to make sure I made something day one to show just what it was like. You know, I've got it out of the box, and here's my experience with it. But yeah, you know, if you're new around here, please consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video. If you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Anyway, let's listen to our track, which I have entitled What Man?